I think that should bring the audio back in. Is it the is the audio okay over there? Can you hear? I just checking with the audience if they have sound. I think they confirmed they have sound. Sound better? Okay, fantastic. Oof. I got scared. The technical difficulties, but now it seems good. So, okay, so we have sound. That's fantastic. So, thanks for coming here. Okay, now we have sound all over. That's fantastic. Okay,
that's good.
That's part of the live stream sometimes because I'm using another system to do this, so that's why. So thanks for tuning in, Max here, and thanks for coming, tuning online. We have a friend here, Tim Hoven, today, who's going to talk about the ramifications of Bill 14, and everybody is excited about it. So basically, we have some indications that this particular bill may be used for nefarious purposes that are not necessarily if you care about independence or just the process in general. I started that thread on X yesterday, and I got a lot of responses from Jeff Rath, Jason Levine as well too. So, and I think we have Nathan here. Can you hear us, Nathan?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes,
absolutely fantastic. Sounds
fantastic.
Good. Yeah, fantastic. So first and foremost, I want to share you the tweet that I just made yesterday, right? This is the tweet in question. So basically, I was tagging Kate Wilson, and this is about the loophole that was allowing just the party leader appointing candidates instead of one who depends for office. So I was just going to ask you this question to Nathan. You are the guy who, from my understanding, you were digging into this, right?
Yeah, I did some digging. So what people should understand about Bill 14 is that it is a omnibus bill, which means that it opens up many different pieces of the legislation, many different acts. It's about 90 pages long. It was introduced in the legislature on Thursday, December the 4th. So that's in itself is a little bit strange, right? You're 1 week before Christmas here, and we have a 90-page bill in front of us. What most people gravitated to is what you did say, which was that it removes some powers from the chief electoral officer over petitions, referendum petitions. And a lot of people like that because they understand that the chief electoral officer was perhaps playing games with the APP's question, sending it to court. So that's all the part that people like. And there's a couple other good parts of it too. I don't want to get people all wrong here. Bill 14 has some good points. But within it, because it's an omnibus piece of legislation, people should understand that there are numerous portions of this bill, some of which are far more, let's say they're well outside the scope of what I just said there about referendum petitions. And the most damaging one, I think, the one that I think I can say the government perhaps got wrong here, is the section that would allow only the leader to sign off on a candidate's nomination with elections over.
What are your thoughts about that, Tim?
Well, Nathan, I'm going to let you explain it because I know you've delved into it so much deeper than I have.
Yeah, so what happens is that when you are a nominated candidate, and I want to make it clear that Elections Alberta does not particularly care how you nominate your candidates. What they do need to know, however, is when we go into an election, they need to know if you claim to be a candidate for a party, whether it's the UCP, NDP, anything, they need to know that you are their candidate. So when they print the ballots, it says Nathan Stanky, whatever. I did run for the Wild Rose back in the day, 2015. So I suppose when I did this process, I went out and I got my 25 signatures from the public. And then I submitted my form to the returning officer, which needed to have a sign off from someone from the party saying, yes, Nathan Stanky is the candidate for the Wild Rose. So this is a standard process. Now, as it's written right now, the legislation as it's written right now, and as it has been for years, has said that any one of the principal officers of the party or of the constituency association can sign off on your nomination.
Yeah.
Now, a principal officer of the party as far as I understand it, it's not well defined. But what I would understand that to be is the president, the CFO, arguably the executive director, or the secretary, or the leader. A principal officer of the constituency association would be the local constituency association president or CFO. Those are the ones on file with the party.
Let me ask you this question because this is kind of interesting because I've done some digging on by myself as well too, and this is a document from October 23, and you mentioned that there's a document from December the 4th that is newer than this one.
Yeah, so there's the standard form asks for a bunch of different information when you're becoming a candidate for the election. But yeah, the one section there is a section that says your endorsement from I believe in the bill here, if you have it on the screen, yeah. I believe it says it's attested by one of the principal officers of the party, your endorsement of that party. And therefore, then you get to go on the ballot as Tim Hoven, UCP, United Conservative Party.
Yeah, that's section 9, 2.1 here. Has to be endorsed right. For the candidate. Okay, so we're talking about the right file. Okay,
we're talking about that is how it is written. That in italics there, that is how the law is currently written.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so that's the current legislation that is currently active. Okay, so I found another document that was coming from the King's branch here, and I'm just going to look at the section 9.2. 9.21 that is currency referencing here. Just going to look at this station report is, and that is 9281 92A. Okay, so that's the document here. Share this tab instead. So this is what's coming from the King's branch printer, and this is kind of the problematic section here, section 92A. If the party government body primary officer, there is no principal office, just a member. Is that the officer of the party?
Sorry, I'm just going to.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that has to do with third parties. The section I think being amended is the one specifically about candidacy, to be registered as a candidate.
Okay, so it's probably down.
That is, I believe, section in the EFCDA, in the Election Finances and Contributions Disclosure Act. That would be section 9. Was it 9.2?
Yeah, which I have here.
Or sorry, no, not 9.2. 9. Sorry, I have the paper in front of me. I'm a paper kind of guy. I'm an old school kind of.
I am old school too.
Yes.
So basically, what you're saying, what you're suggesting is that by this legislation, from the way it was explained to me, was that this particular legislation kind of removes. Because normally what happens, from my understanding right now, is that the CAs, the constituency associations can somehow select, let's say there's a candidate, going on, and we have a few in a couple of months. They submit the paperwork from the CA to Elections Alberta, and then that gets approved by an officer within the UCP in this case. What you mentioned is that this power has been removed.
Well, yes. So now we're going down from. So whereas in the past, any number of trusted people within the party, whether the party president, we're talking about people who have been elected by party members, to be clear, or people like the executive director who are hired by the party board. So we're talking about trusted people within the party. Any number of them could have signed a candidate's nomination, which says to Elections Alberta, yes, this person is our attested candidate. Yes, we agree that in such and such a riding, this person represents the United Conservative Party. So I just wanted people to kind of consider this. If we are going from those people, of whom the leader was one, down to just the leader being able to do that, I just want to speak hypothetically here because we have had bad leaders before in Alberta.
Yeah.
We've seen them. I mean,
Yeah.
Tim would know
And I
this.
hope you'll have
but-
them again, right?
Yes, I hope we don't have them. We will have them again, even though I don't want them to. But we're, you know, over the course of decades, bad leaders come and go. We've had multiple within the last decade, I would say, from Redford to Notley to, yeah, exactly. So, my standard would be this: think about if Jason Kenney were doing this, would you be happy with it? And so
Probably not.
Tim Hoven is a great example here. Because I don't think that Jason Kenney liked him very much. And so if Tim had legally and officially won a nomination race within the UCP, which the leader is then within our party, within our internal party rules of the UCP, the leader is supposed to sign Tim's nomination paper and say, yes, he's the UCP candidate for, I believe it was Rimby, right? So if that had happened, but now let's just say that perhaps Mr. Kenney decided not to do that. Under the current rules, somebody else could do that. So if Tim wins, and even if the leader doesn't like him and doesn't want to sign the paper, his constituency president could, or the president of the party could, or the secretary of the party could, or the executive director of the party could. Now, if it's just the leader, I'm not suggesting that any individual leader would go rogue, but if a leader were to go rogue, we have to think about when things get messy. And in this situation, if a leader refused to sign a nomination paper and endorse a candidate for the UCP, you would have no recourse. There would be no one else who could sign that paper for you.
And that could be also a problem. Let's say that you have, let's say, an NDP, hypothetical here. You can also pretend or stipulate that the NDP is in power and they can use all their minions, those woke activists, those minions running the show and electing their activists masquerading as candidates, basically, right?
Yeah, I would say the bigger problem would just be, if the will of the membership came into conflict with the will of the leader. And again, we've seen that before, most obviously, the leader before the current one. And my personal preference, first of all, with legislation, I don't believe in omnibus bills, really. I believe if you want to make a bill that changes the petition aspect of things, we should limit ourselves to making a bill that changes that. I don't like making a bill that changes that and also 10 other things. Because then when people talk about Bill 14, they say, is it a good bill? Is it a bad bill? Well, if it were a more precise bill, I could give you an answer. Right now, it's half and half. It's a mix of good things and bad things. And so when people hear Bill 14, they say, and if I say Bill 14 shouldn't pass because I don't agree with this change to the leader nominating, signing off, having the sole authority to sign off, people say, well, you don't want Bill 14 to pass? I thought Bill 14 is a good bill. So, I mean, so I'm just going to strictly to this portion with the leader. I would say in our party, we are a grassroots party and we need to stay a grassroots party. Yeah. And this takes away some of that grassroots nature. And it's in fact using the legislature. This is also kind of bothers me that we're using the legislature to regulate internal party matters. Our party matters should be, I don't understand. That seems like government overreach to me.
Oh, it is.
Yeah. So that's another concern with it. Yeah.
Well, you could look at it, Nathan, that by legislating this and making it law, not just a party policy or party bylaw, it supersedes what the membership at the party decide. So the members of the UCP party could vote for something completely different, something that is more grassroots, and it's not going to happen because the provincial law supersedes it. So it's a way of getting around grassroots members who I believe want decentralization of power in our government. And it plays the trump card It's like the notwithstanding clause for party politics.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I got a question for both of you guys, because as I said, I shared this tweet yesterday after a few phone calls about the whole process of what's going on. And let's take a look at some of the responses we got, because as I mentioned, this is very technical for me. So this is the original X post here. I'm just going to share that to my screen here. And one of the things, at the first guy, and basically Corey Morgan, which responded that this is the final rate for the candidates under the banner. So it's always been like this. So it seems to me, and this is Jeff Rapp here responded, and later on, we have Jason Levine responding to this, basically that he kind of agrees to what's being posted here, but he was we're going to consideration, and this is the post here. Just going to share the other screen here. So basically, he's agreeing on the current slate of affairs, which includes an or, that, and everything. So basically, what you mentioned is that the newer version doesn't have those balance in checks, right? Right?
Correct. So the new version would just have the leader that is the only person in the only party official who could sign off as the leader.
Is there something that we can find just for the fun of it when you had a link for that document?
For which document, sorry?
For the newest version of.
So if you scroll up, if you just scroll up on that bill.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. That's the newer version. Okay, this is the 160 pages document.
So the legislation, Bill 14. So if you go back to Bill 14 there, and there's that part in italics, that's when they write a bill, they typically show you the bill as it is, and then they tell you the amendments. So if you go back to Bill 14 and pull that up, page 47. Yeah, so if you just scroll up from there, go down. Yeah, to the top of page 47. There you are. So that's, we kind of keep skipping past it, I think, but if we just go to the top of page 47.
I'm page 47 right now. Should be 48, I guess.
48? Oh, there we go. So there. So you see there that section 9.2.1 is amended.
Mm-hmm.
And in the following clauses. So you can see there in the first clause, by striking out one of the principal officers of the party or the constituency association and substituting the leader.
Oh,
so that's the actual, that is the change. That's where people should be looking. Sorry, I didn't catch that's what you were looking for, but that is the change. And then the part in italics, when they write the bill, they show you the way that the bill, that the law currently stands, so that you can compare and contrast it.
So that's
I just got a note here that the second reading of this bill is going to be taking place this evening. So it will be interesting if they do bring up any changes, because in the second reading, that is when amendments are brought forward.
I believe changes can be made in committee of the whole. So first reading, second reading, committee of the whole, then third reading. So my understanding is that amendments need to be made in committee of the whole. That would be the next reading. You're right though. That would be very interesting to see if they give any indication that they're willing to make any amendments to this. And I would amend Bill 14 by removing this. I would remove this section that's up on the screen here.
Absolutely.
It's completely unnecessary. It centralizes power into the premier's office, which is good if you want to limit democracy and get rid of the grassroots. But like you were saying earlier, we are a party of individual grassroots members, and our voice needs to be heard.
Yes, and further to your point, when you said that we're moving this direction, I mean, just at the AGM we just had 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago, we passed a governance motion saying we actually reduced the premier's power of appointments. Within our internal party rules, we said we're not giving you the ability to appoint 4 candidates anymore. You can appoint 2. And if you appoint 2, you need to get board approval and oversight over that process. And so we're actually kind of as a party going in the other direction, as the government is saying, no, we're going in this direction. And they're almost using the legislature to override what the members decided at our AGM. And now I will say this, because I believe you should always make the strongest case against your argument. the government and the Premier's office will argue, and they have argued, this change is just clarifying it, because the leader is the one who typically signs the nomination papers anyway. And the leader would always sign your nomination papers because the leader is bound by the internal rules of the party.
Yeah.
And I would just say to that again, it's not about when things are working perfectly. The law matters when things are getting messy. So let's posit a situation where there's either a snap election and there's no nominations that have been done, or we get close to an election, a fixed election date, or we get to the election, and a leader, again, hypothetically, refuses to sign off on a candidate who has been duly nominated by the party, gone through the nomination race. What would you do? What would you do in the middle of an election campaign to compel the leader to sign that?
You can't do anything.
You could go, I suppose, to the party's internal dispute resolution process, arbitration committee. That takes forever. You could, and even then, if that arbitration committee ruled against the leader, there's still nothing compelling that leader to sign. So then I suppose you could get a lawyer and you could sue the leader.
The party, yeah.
And you could sue the party and you could say they're not following their internal rules. And I'll just say, by the time the courts get around to ruling on that, the votes will be counted and the MLAs will be taking their seats.
Yeah.
So, the most important thing that we do as a party, one of the most important things, is selecting the candidates, because those become the caucus who become the government. And so messing around with the nomination process is the single most damaging thing you could do. It is the fight. It's the thing that matters at the end of the day. I mean, we're talking about this bill here. These are the people who go and vote for these bills. So if you get the caucus you want, you get the outcomes you want. And that's why this fight matters. And clearly that's why this fight matters to somebody. You wouldn't be changing this unless you thought this fight mattered, right? It's been working fine for years. Somebody has signed off on nomination papers. Sometimes it's the leader. I've heard that in Kenny years it was the leader. I've also heard that in the last election that Danielle Smith ran in, it wasn't Danielle Smith who signed it. It was actually a party official that wasn't Danielle. So this idea that it's always the leader, no, it hasn't always been the leader, but you know what? It always tends to work out fine. But again, it will work out fine until it doesn't, right? Isn't that essentially the problem here?
And if you look at the current situation with Alberta independence and a referendum vote, all of a sudden, if you take power out of the hands of the local constituencies, and in the worst case scenario, the leader needs to get candidates really fast, all of a sudden, the leader has the authority to choose candidates who will agree with, let's say, for example, a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada instead of a free and independent Alberta. So this could be a way for the leader to make sure that there are no independence candidates running in the UCP. Because when she got booed for mentioning working with Carney, I think it sent her a big message that the majority of the people who are active in the party, who care about politics, who will drop, $700-800 to come to a meeting for a weekend, they are pro-independence. And it's one thing to have a party of, I don't even know, 50,000 people, but if you've got 8,000 active people who want independence, that's going to affect the balance of power. So what does the party leadership need to do just to put the brakes on that movement? Well, this is one way. You just apply a little pressure on those brakes to slow it down. It's a tool in their toolbox that they can use to keep control.
I got a question for you guys, and this is kind of a weird question or constructing question, because this is basically legislation. This is basically something that will be sitting at the legislative assembly there. Who has actually putting these things together? This is definitely the caucus who's doing this, right?
Bills are typically, they're introduced by cabinet ministers and they use their lawyers to draft this. Yeah. This one was introduced. This is a blanket, as I said, an omnibus bill that was drafted by Mickey Amory that affects many different pieces of legislation within the justice scope, within the justice world.
Interesting. So let's take a look at a more theoretical situation right here, because at this point of time, given that this thing was put forward on December the 4th, just right after the AGM, which is kind of surprising, and basically on the comments that we have that I just pull out on social media, there seems to be no danger whatsoever, but that's because they haven't read the newer iteration of this particular legislation, right?
Right. So what I would say is this. Regardless of whether or not you like the current leader or you don't, and you know what? I've gone to the mat for some of the things that they've done because I think this government's done some great things. I think this government also has had some missteps. I don't think it's important to get into personalities here. But when I think about this line, the line that they are pitching, which is essentially, we're removing these safeguards, we're removing these checks and balances, but trust us, we won't ever misuse it. Trust us, you don't need the safeguard because we won't screw you.
It's almost like saying trust the government. It's basically saying trust the government.
Yeah, exactly. And so now you're in a situation where, that is basically, put that on your tombstone. That's the famous last words in politics is, trust us, you don't need this safeguard, but we'll never abuse it. And so my bigger point, rather than talking about any individual, is to say that this is bad legislation because it invites abuse. It opens the door to abuse. It opens the door to a problem which did not before exist. And it basically says if there's ever a dispute, one person holds the big stick and the rest of us don't. And again, if you trust that will never be misused, all power to you. I've just been around it too long to believe that myself.
And nothing prevents someone like the NDP or some NDP candidates from abusing this and putting their little pawns, their little activists, and their little minions to kind of circumvent what they want. Even if you take up, for example, the NDP, who has centrist candidates, they're not necessarily conservative, but they don't agree with the whole progressive, left-leaning policies. They're necessarily going to look and say, oh, I have a center candidate who is not necessarily a conservative, but it's definitely not an extremist left-leaning candidate. They're going to be using against them as well. So what we're doing here with UCP is just not for the UCP or whatever candidates, is whatever party it's involved at this point, right?
Yeah, well, this regulates every party. And this is another thing that's a little bit strange about this. Because why does it really matter? Why would the government need to regulate how a party signs off on its candidates? That's not really government business. A party's business is private and internal to itself. And so to use the power of the legislature to tell every party, you must conduct your affairs this way, when, as I just said, we haven't even been conducting our affairs this way. In the last election, as I said, there were officials other than the leader who signed off on candidates. So what was the problem with that? What really would be the problem if we had every once in a while a constituency president who signed off on the local nomination? Like, wouldn't that be a good sign of respect to our constituency presidents? Wouldn't that be a sign of trust? I know that the Premier's office is asking us to trust them on this. Well, we won't ever misuse this. But it seems to me that they also don't trust us, because they're saying we need to take these powers away from constituency presidents and from the party president and from the party principal officers. I don't know. What are you saying about them then? Why can't they have some sort of ownership over these nominations themselves? Why can't we delegate some powers to these people who are trusted people in our party?
Mm-hmm.
People who have been elected by our members.
And what are the change?
Like you said,
yeah, go ahead, Tim.
If they do not trust the membership anymore. And there is, I believe, a big divide between the elected members and what they're allowed to say publicly and the membership at this time. And this is one way of just closing that door just a little tiny bit so they can have further control on everything.
I know that this particular talk that we have here is basically opening a huge Pandora's box on all different directions. For many of people who are favoring independence, the deal is sealed. Basically, Bill 14 is the way to go, but that is under the impression of the old legislation, not the newer one. I have seen in the comments people who necessarily agree with the current version, but they don't necessarily aware of the newer iteration. And I know that some podcasters probably, I mean, this conversation is going to how do I say, is going to I wouldn't say delay the referendum to some degree, but it's definitely going to put some questions on people's faces when they see that the current version of the law is preventing local representation like this, right? So do you think that if this goes around, if this bill passes or gets delayed or gets amended or something like that, is that something that's going to potentially delay the referendum or some sort of that, or not?
No. So if this portion that you have on the screen here, if this were removed, it would not affect the passage of the bill. You could introduce an amendment at committee of the whole, scratching this part, and the rest of the bill could still pass. And to be clear, as I said, there are parts of Bill 14, especially the part that makes it easier, or I should say, it gives the power over the referendum question to the justice minister and not the courts, and not the chief electoral officer. And so that part is great. Like I said, that's a great part of Bill 14. When everyone thinks about what they like about Bill 14, people like that part. They do not like this part. But nothing about removing this has anything to do with petitions. I'm not even sure why this is in here. Like, this is what's kind of crazy to me, is that they said, we're going to give you this thing about petitions for referendums. And people are so excited about that. And then you see it, it's 90 plus pages and it's got a bunch of poison pills in it.
Yeah, exactly, because because that's exactly the point, is that people are so excited. Like, when I see podcasters and all those guys, they're all like, Bill 14, let's go through it, and that's gonna give people, it's gonna help the independence movement, yada yada yada. But the other hand, you're essentially putting poison pills into this, right? And that's what we're talking about.
Well, they're giving with one hand and taking with another.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this question. Let me ask you this question. Now that this has been outlined out to the public, is there anything that we can do about it? Because this is gonna create massive tidal waves. Like, I'm starting to see people like talking about this all over again. The Bill 14. What exactly can we do to prevent this from happening?
Well, you have to contact, first of all, your MLA, because they are going to the legislature tonight to pass second reading, and they'll probably be passing committee of the whole tomorrow, and then probably passing third reading by Wednesday. You can do one reading a day. So, and rumor has it that they'll also be using time allocation, which is basically a way of saying we're cutting off debate. It used to be a very serious thing to use time allocation, to say no more debate at this stage, to stop people from discussing it and just move it on. It used to be very serious. That's a grave thing to do, to limit debate in the legislature. This government has been fond of using it. So essentially, we could get 3 readings in 3 days, and second committee of the whole, third. By this Wednesday, it's over. So you're gonna have to contact your MLA. You're gonna have to let them know that, like, I don't agree with this. I don't agree with taking power away from our officials in the party and giving it to one person. I don't agree with that. The second thing you can do is you can contact the party board, the party president, the party. They're all on the United Conservative Party website. And you should let them know, because they have some role to go to the government and say, because it affects them. This actually piece of legislation affects the party board. They should care more than anyone. If I were the party president, Rob Smith, I would deeply care about this, because this is just a piece of legislation that just took away some of my power. If I were a constituency association president, I'd care deeply about this too. So if they don't, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know why they wouldn't. To me, I would care if it were my role.
Yeah, so right now I do happen to have so this is from the government website, assemble.ab.ca. So this is the list of the MLAs. Let's take a look at, one. Who's my MLA? I'm going to take, let's say, like Aaron Bouchard, let's say, just for the fun of it. I just put one on top of my head. So you got it here. You have their phone number. That's the phone number, email, fax. So basically as well. So this is just a way you can get contact information from the government website. You can actually call and from their office directly to kind of voice your concerns, because this is very damaging, because I don't think people are aware of this that much. They only stuck with the previous version of the law, which is the one that doesn't have this poison pill into this, right? So
yeah, and so and then if you pull up the United Conservative Party website, you can find the emails of the party board as well, if you'd like to go that route.
Yeah, I got one of the comments here basically saying write to your MLA, write to the premier, and write to the premier as well. So this is one of the comments that I have here. Very good. Yeah. So basically what's going to have to do is just make a couple of phone calls, say I don't agree with this section here. So the section in question is section 2.1 is amended. The amendments are the ones that are conflicting here.
Yes. Ask your MLA to delete page 47 out of their bill. that's essentially what I would, whatever the page number is on that. But ask them to delete that one section. I believe there's other portions of the bill that aren't great, but I think that if we could get rid of this, I think we could all live with it. It's by far the worst part.
Yeah, I got a question, because this is something that was raised as well too. Not necessarily specific to this bill, but if you look at page 46 under section 7, I believe, is it subsections? So this is page 46. We're adding the following other section for the purpose of the section: a distinctive word for praise, including following commission abbreviations, part of speech or grammatical form of the following, and they have all the suffix prefixes of the party. I don't know if you can expand on that, or just is not.
Yeah, so this was kind of you know what, I it's one of those things. Some people are worked up about it, some people aren't. I'll just tell you what's going on and why it's controversial. They have decided to bring in rules saying that you cannot have anything that's even remotely close to the name of an existing party.
What?
And I mean, this is now what I'll preface this by saying that the Peter Guthrie and Scott Sinclair are trying to reform the Progressive Conservative Party. I think that's silly. I think it's stupid. I don't support it. But the UCP is getting a little bit possessive over the Progressive Conservative branding and saying we own that, because that was a party that came together with the Wild Rose, and so you can't have it. Even though it's a defunct party, even though we don't use any of their branding, they don't want another group of people taking that and running with it. And so in this legislation, you can never go to Elections Alberta and ever register the name of a party again with any of those words in it, including the word conservative. So last election there was a Freedom Conservative Party on the ballot or something, along with the
Republican Party, I think.
Yeah, well, so that can never happen. The ones that exist won't be deregistered, but you can never go create a Conservative Party of Alberta. It's and really they're trying to get at these newly formed PCs. I don't understand why. I don't care. I'm not possessive over the PC brand. They can have it for all I care. No, that's not. I hope they go create a party that's called the Progressive Conservatives, because we all remember how terrible they were. But
just call it the PC Party.
Yeah, well, you can't do that either, because it's too close in. You can't use any acronym that is also close either.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a little draconian. It's a little bit limiting of free speech and free expression, I would say. Now, whether or not people care about it or not, it seems petty. You know what? I will say this: it seems petty, right? It seems petty to go and take away certain words because you're scared that people might accidentally create something that you don't like. I don't know. I think you should never a lion shouldn't concern himself with the opinion of sheep, kind of thing. That's the way I think we should approach it, but they see otherwise. So They brought that into this law as well, which again has nothing to do with referendum petitions, by the way.
No,
It's just like opening this up and being like, yeah, let's add in that too, you know.
yeah, it's
One other
funny to
note.
see. Yeah,
No, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, I was going to say I can jump around a little bit here, but one other portion that I think is a little bit concerning to me is that this is related to referendum petitions. When we go to collect signatures for independence, for sovereignty, every canvasser will personally have to witness the identification and address of every person who signs the petition.
True.
So that is a hurdle that Thomas Lukaszuk and his group did not have to do.
How come?
Essentially, well, I don't know. I think they're trying to make it harder to get signatures. But I mean, so now you essentially have to prove that you're a voter in Alberta, which fine, that's fine. But again, it's a new hurdle. So essentially, if I'm out there with my clipboard and I'm getting signatures, and someone wants to sign my sheet, I, as the owner of that piece of paper, am going to have to see that they have a piece of government ID with an address. And if they don't have that, they're going to need 2 pieces of ID with name and address, like a utility bill or whatnot. So you're basically turning every canvasser into a returning officer. I don't know why they put that in there. Again, why didn't Thomas Lukaszuk have to do that when he got his 400,000? Do I think it's going to stop separation? No, I think we'll still get it. And you know what? Great. When we prove everyone's address, we're just going to prove that they'll also be there to vote for it. So let's get 1 million signatures with the ID, and then we'll really scare them, right?
Did they announce how many addresses and signers were disqualified from Lukaszuk's poll? Like, was this something that really affected his numbers, and so they threw it in the legislation to try to clean it up?
Perhaps. The thing is, like, I know Elections Alberta had to spend a lot of time and money verifying those signatures of Lukaszuk's, and I get that. But even if we submit the papers with having seen people's ID, they'll still have to be verified. We're really not saving Elections Alberta any time or money. They're still going to go through and verify them. They're not going to take our word for it, even if maybe it was because so many, like about 10% of Lukaszuk's got thrown out. I think he went in with 440,000, and by the end of it, he was just over 400. So maybe that has something to do with it. Just ensuring that the ones you get are actually valid. But again, so it's a new hurdle. Again, the people I've talked to within APP and within the sovereignty movement, they don't seem to be too concerned about it. They still feel we can get it. Mm-hmm. I'm inclined to agree. But that's just another thing that people might not realize. And you should realize, if you're going to be volunteering for the sovereignty movement, that you should be prepared to verify people's electoral status in Alberta.
That's going to be funny for me, who has a PO box on every single utility bill under my company name. I don't know how they're going to do this, but
I hope that a piece of government ID, like your driver's license, that has your name and your PO box, I hope that would be sufficient. We're going to have to see if that's. It's essentially the same rules as an election. So if you have whatever you'd have to produce at election time, you'll have to produce when you sign the petition. So
yeah, basically the rules are that if you have voted in the last provincial election, you're good to go for the referendum vote, basically to vote to put your name on the referendum, on the not the referendum list, but you can actually put your name on the list if you want, but you have to be. That's what I think it was discussed in a previous town hall, I think a couple of months back. So in regards to that, do we have anything, closing remarks, anything weird I need to discuss about this bill that needs to be addressed?
I think the big thing is, if you are concerned about this, call or write an email or text your MLA tonight or tomorrow. You don't have any time to waste on this. This is, it could be law by the weekend. So you need to act quickly. Go to the UCP website, find your central representative or Edmonton representative, the party president, send an email explaining why you're against this, so the provincial board knows where the members are, And if you know your local CA president, send him an email too, because this affects him.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah,
put the
I
website in.
Yeah, I would agree with Tim completely. And I would just say that, when you're making this point, I know that you will get pushback. I know people will get pushback because the first thing they will tell you is it doesn't matter because we're not going to abuse it. And I just really want people to understand that is, please don't buy that line. Because even if you trust this government, you're going to be, we're all going to be here for decades. And we've seen things come and go. And we would never want this in the hands of people that we don't trust. And removing that check and balance that exists, it can only ever make abuse easier. And I just really don't believe in anything that could ever make abuse easier, that could ever make misuse of the law easier. It's very important. Nominations are the lifeblood of our party, right? That's what we do. We raise money, we volunteer ultimately so that we can get like-minded, good, conservative, solid MLAs. And if you can't do that, that really cuts right to the core of our mission.
Absolutely. And that's going to essentially, that's going to destroy the works that been done in the last 3 or 4 years in the grassroots level. So it's kind of very concerning.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts, Tim?
Well, I think this is important. If you were to ask the people at that AGM 2 weeks ago, do you support further centralization of power in the Premier's office, or should we continue to decentralize power from Edmonton throughout the province? Everyone would have said we have to decentralize. And literally 48 hours after the AGM, we have a bill like this coming forward that has one little thing in it that centralizes power. Well, you could also say Mickey Amory or the Justice Minister being in charge of the referendum question. That's a centralization of power as well, when it should maybe stay at the neutral Elections Alberta office, right? If we want a system that works well, you have to decentralize things, and we have to fight it, because if we don't fight it, you're going to slowly and consistently lose your rights throughout time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And if you have to fight it, in an election, right? If you have to fight this at an inopportune time, you're going to lose. Yeah. Again, somebody grabbing the big stick is you only grab the big stick if you intend to, threaten someone with it. And so, or use it, or at least have it. Yes. And so you do not want to be fighting this issue at the wrong time. You don't want to be fighting this in the middle, trying to sort out whether or not the leader is abiding properly by internal party rules in the middle of an election campaign. That just will not happen. You're going to lose that fight. We're all going to lose that fight.
Yeah, and what
going to lose that fight? The people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are going to lose that fight.
Mm.
Absolutely, and what kind of worries me is what Nathan was just saying. It's not because the current government is going well that can be essentially weaponized by our adversaries. Like I was talking with a gentleman just in Red Deer the other day. He was worried about the independence stuff, basically worrying about. I'm gonna show page 47 again, just for some people in the audience too. So this is section 40, page 46, and I'm just gonna lower section 47. So the section in question is not on page 47; it's on page 48.
48. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. That's okay. And the section in question is section 921. I'm just highlighting this so you can see what's going on. So if there's some people taking screenshots and everything of that nature, that's the question. That's the amendment that's been put forward there. So basically, section 921 in Clause A, by striking out one of the principal officers of the registered party of the applicable constituency station and substituting the leader of the registered party. That's the conflicting issue. And in Clause B, by striking out one of the principal officers and substituting the leader. That's the new amendment there.
Yeah. And so I will just kind of say we have a pretty good board. We have actually quite a good board. Very honest operators for the most part, and so I think that they are. As far as nomination season goes, I actually think that this is a board that plays things down the line, and it's good to see. It's very good to see.
Yes, it
but
is.
I would just say that even if you're not maybe independence minded or sovereignty minded, but maybe you're a social conservative, someone who's of the pro-life faction or something like this, every single election, it seems like there's pressure for us to eliminate our own candidates for being too whatever, too conservative, too bedrock, too strident about their conservative values. There's always pressure on us to do this. And I think that this is, again, I trust the members and I trust the officials of this party to get it right. I really do. And so taking powers away from this group of people, our CA presidents and our party president and our party CFO and all these good people, and just centralizing into one person, you're just, again, those pressures for the leader to can somebody for unpopular views or for controversial views, that just gets too easy to do.
No, absolutely. And it's kind of like, it's basically a poison pill at this point. So I think we're all set in for sex. So just call your MLA, tell your MLA how you feel about this. And so once again, the sections in question, it's section 9.2.1, and that it's on page 48. And if you want to ask you how to get this document, in case you wonder, I'm just going to show you you guys here. Okay. So basically I type Bill 14 Alberta, and it's the first it's the second document here. That's the document I'm looking at right now. And that is on page 48. That's the section that is problematic here. So that's how I got to get to this document. You can print the document if you want. So what I will do is that each one has email addresses and fax numbers. So you can just print page 48 and put a circle or something to that effect, and just let people know that this is the area that is problematic in a sense. So I would like to sincerely thank you guys for your time. I think it's very valuable information. It's very, very important last minute, given the challenges that was going to happen in the next couple months with the independent stuff and such things. So I'd like to thank you for your time, guys. Thanks, Tim, for the wake-up call. Thanks, Nathan, for the explanations. And I will not thank everybody in the audience for tuning in. My name is Max. And if you want to feel free to subscribe on top down the list, fcalendar.net. That's the handle for this talk. And I'm going to make some clips out of it so people can have some discussions. And hopefully this will raise questions with people in office right now, because this is important. So thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. And we'll talk soon. And thanks for your time. Bye.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks for having me.